Jimin's hidden family conflict is exposed when his father nearly strikes Jungkook, and a shocking moment is captured by a BTS member. "Don't touch him." Jimin's voice rang out, sharp and urgent, in the backstage area. His face was pale, his fists clenched tightly. All eyes were on him and his father, who stood, fiery-eyed, glaring at Jungkook as if he wanted to destroy him. Jungkook stood frozen in the center of the room, eyes locked with Jimin's, but his heart was racing. He felt the danger closing in, his body tense, aware of the growing tension that no one had seen coming. Not far from him, Jimin's father, a man in his mid-40s with a hardened face, took a step toward Jungkook with a clear intent in his eyes. "You're nobody to teach my son anything. If you were truly his friend, you wouldn't be encouraging him to go against me." His voice was a roar that shattered the silence in the room. Jungkook froze, his confusion mounting. He had known for a while that Jimin's relationship with his father wasn't great, but this was something else. The once lively atmosphere of the backstage, buzzing with excitement after the concert, was now suffocating, and the members of BTS, who had been nearby, could only watch, paralyzed by the situation that Jimin's father raised his hand, as if to strike Jungkook. But at that exact moment, a phone clicked, a sharp, unexpected sound that cut through the tension. Click! The sound of a recording began. "Who's recording this?" Namjoon's voice trembled, his eyes fixed on the screen of the phone. It had all happened so fast. Jimin's father raising his hand to strike Jungkook, and the entire moment captured in real time. Jimin, now frozen in place, suddenly sprinted toward his father, gripping his arm with what little strength he had left. "Please stop. This has gone too far." His voice cracked with desperation, but the damage had been done. As Jimin tried to pull his father away, the video from the phone was already making its rounds. Within seconds, the footage was circulating within the group chat. "It's gone viral," Namjoon whispered, his eyes glued to the screen. The video, capturing an enraged father almost striking another person, was out there for everyone to see. Jimin couldn't move. He knew, deep down, that the world would never look at him the same again. "Why did you do this?" Jimin whispered, his voice thick with regret as he stared at Jungkook, who seemed both confused and hurt. "This wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't want you involved." Jungkook stood still, his heart aching. "You think I could just stand by and let that happen? That's not right, Jimin," he replied, his voice low but firm. The strain beneath the surface when the concert ended and BTS returned to their dressing room. An air of tension settled in. The members, still in shock, exchanged uneasy glances. What were they supposed to do now? The video was out there, spreading like wildfire. Meanwhile, Jimin sat slumped in a corner, his hands covering his face, defeated. Jungkook stood a few paces away, trying to give him space, but his own heart still bled from the pain of seeing what had unfolded. "Why me?" Jimin asked softly, almost to himself. Suddenly, Jin's voice cut through the tension, a small flicker of calm amidst the chaos. "Jimin, we've got your back. We won't let this tear you down." Jimin lifted his head, his eyes tired but glistening with the faintest spark of hope. "But what about my father? What happens if people find out about this? If my family finds out?" "I know this is heavy," Namjoon said, "but you're not alone. We'll face this together." Jimin's eyes fell to the floor. His father's words still echoed in his mind. His father had always wanted more from him. He'd pushed Jimin to be more than just good enough, more than a star. He wanted him to be perfect. The pressure was unbearable, and now Jimin was caught in the middle of it all. His family, the people he loved, were demanding something from him that no one else could understand. But on the other side, Jungkook, who felt betrayed by the situation, couldn't stay silent. "I can't just stay quiet about this. Fans have a right to know. We deserve the truth." Namjoon sighed, realizing Jungkook was right. But is this the right time to reveal it? If we do, we're going to have to face a lot of questions. Jungkook met his gaze, determination burning in his eyes. It's better to be honest than to lie and keep living in that lie. Nothing good will come from that. Jimin, feeling slightly steadied by his friend's support, stood up, ready to face the storm. "You're right. I won't let this destroy us. I need to be honest with all of you. But deep down, Jimin felt torn. He didn't want to betray his father, but he couldn't keep hiding anymore. Jungkook, I didn't mean for this to happen. Jimin's voice was barely a whisper, yet the weight of his words hung heavily in the room. He stood by the window, his back to the group, staring at the lights of Seoul that glittered below like stars in a distant universe. There was a part of him that wanted to escape, to pretend this whole mess didn't exist, but the reality was far too heavy to ignore. Jungkook stood in front of him, his arms crossed, eyes unreadable. You didn't mean for it to happen, but it did, he said, his voice flat. And now we're all caught in the middle of something we should have never seen. I didn't ask for this. Jimin turned slowly to face him, his heart pounding in his chest. I didn't ask for it either, he replied, a trace of bitterness in his tone. But sometimes things happen and we can't control them. The rest of BTS remained silent, the tension between their two youngest members palpable. Everyone had seen the footage. It had been shared, reposted, discussed in every corner of the internet. But what they hadn't seen was what was behind the scenes. The torment Jimin had lived with for years, the invisible pressure from his father that now threatened to tear everything apart. Jimin, Yoongi's voice cut through the stillness, low and steady. We get it. But right now, you need to decide. Are you going to let this break you? Or are you going to stand up for yourself? Jimin's shoulders sagged. He'd heard those words before, spoken by his father, spoken by his managers. Always the same message. Be stronger, be better. But the truth was, he didn't feel strong. Not now. Not with everything falling apart around him. I don't know how to fix this, Jimin admitted, his voice small. I'm torn, guys. My father he's everything to me. But at the same time, he's the one destroying me. Jungkook stepped forward, his expression softening for a moment. Jimin, we've always been your family too. You don't have to carry this alone. He paused, then added, his voice quieter. You're not alone in this. But even as he said it, there was a part of Jungkook that struggled to understand. Jimin's father had nearly hit him. How could he stand by and watch Jimin continue to suffer under that kind of abuse, especially when Jimin himself couldn't see the danger? I don't know what to do, Jungkook, Jimin whispered, his voice breaking. I've tried to do everything right, to meet his expectations. But no matter what I do, it's never enough. I keep failing him. Jungkook felt a surge of empathy, a deep, aching sympathy for his friend. He had always known that Jimin had a complicated relationship with his father, but seeing it unfold so painfully, so openly, was something he hadn't been prepared for. He wasn't sure if Jimin truly understood how much damage was being done to him. Jimin, Jungkook said, his tone softer now, you're not a failure. You never were. If anyone's failing here, it's your father. He's the one who can't accept who you are. You've done everything for him, and it's still not enough. That's not on you. Jimin closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him, but they didn't quite reach the heart of his torment. It was a complicated knot of love and resentment, guilt and anger that he couldn't unravel so easily. And now, with the entire world watching, it felt impossible to find the right path forward. Suddenly, Namjoon spoke up, his voice steady but tinged with the weight of the situation. We can't undo what happened, but we can control what happens next. If you want to face your father, we'll be there for you. If you want to tell the truth, we'll support you. But you have to make that choice. No one can do it for you. Jimin stared at his friends, his brothers, and felt something shift inside him. The familiar ache in his chest wasn't going to go away, but maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to carry it all by himself anymore. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this, Jimin murmured, a tear slipping down his cheek. I don't know if I can go up against my own father, but I don't want to keep pretending either. Yoongi walked over and placed a hand on Jimin's shoulder. You don't have to go through it alone, Hyung. We're right here. Whatever you decide, we're here. For the first time in a long while, Jimin allowed himself to believe in that support. He wasn't alone, but that didn't make the decision any easier. The truth was there, staring him in the face, but it was buried beneath so many layers of fear, guilt, and love. The following days were a blur of constant media attention, fan reactions, and internal discussions among the members. The viral video had only intensified the pressure, and everyone was watching, waiting to see what Jimin would do next. But what the world didn't see, what the cameras didn't capture, was the internal war Jimin fought within himself. He was stuck between two worlds: the world of fame and love he had built with BTS, and the world of suffocating expectations and emotional manipulation that his father had created. Could he escape it? Could he find peace in the chaos? Jimin sat alone in the quiet of his room that evening, the weight of everything pressing down on him. His phone buzzed with notifications, but he didn't have the heart to look. His mind was elsewhere, on his father, on Jungkook, and on the choice that now lay before him. And somewhere deep inside, Jimin knew that whatever decision he made, it would change everything. The cold soul air cut through the window as Jimin sat in silence, staring at his reflection in the mirror. He could feel the weight of the entire world pressing on him, but it wasn't the spotlight or the pressure of being a global star that weighed the heaviest. It was his father, always his father. What would he think of me? Jimin wondered. Will I disappoint him again? Will he ever accept me for who I am? Behind him, his phone buzzed relentlessly, but Jimin couldn't bring himself to look at the screen. He knew it was filled with messages, some from the members, some from fans. Everyone seemed to be watching him, waiting for him to make the next move, but Jimin didn't know what to do. The memory of the last few days replayed in his mind. The explosive confrontation with his father, the almost violent moment that had been captured by the BTS members. He couldn't shake the image of his father's hand raised, poised to strike Jungkook. The same father who had always told him to be strong, to meet impossible standards, now seemed like the one who needed to be confronted. The room was quiet except for the occasional hum of passing cars below, but the silence inside felt suffocating. Suddenly, a soft knock on the door broke the stillness. Jimin didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Jimin, can we talk? It was Jungkook. His voice was gentle, but there was an unmistakable determination in it. Jimin wiped his eyes, trying to steady his breath before turning to face him. I don't know if I can do this, Jungkook, he said quietly, his voice shaky. I don't know how to fight back against my father. It's been so long. I'm afraid of what will happen if I finally stand up to him. Jungkook stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. The concern on his face was evident, but there was also something deeper, a quiet strength that seemed to offer a lifeline in this chaotic moment. You don't have to do it alone, Jungkook said, his voice unwavering. We're here for you, and I know it's hard, but you're stronger than you think. You don't have to keep pretending to be someone you're not just to make him happy. Jimin's throat tightened, and for a moment, he felt the weight of his tears again. He had spent so many years trying to meet his father's expectations that the thought of doing something for himself, something that would make him happy, felt foreign. He had lived under the shadow of his father's disapproval for so long that it was impossible to imagine breaking free. I don't know what that feels like, Jimin admitted, his voice barely audible. I've never really made a decision for myself. It's always been about him, his dreams, his rules. Jungkook walked over and sat next to Jimin, resting his hand on his shoulder in a gesture of comfort. And that's okay, Jimin, but you're not a child anymore. You have the right to live for yourself. You spent so long living in someone else's shadow, but you have your own light now. We're your family too, and we support you. Jimin turned his face away, a single tear slipping down his cheek. I don't know if I can let go of him, he whispered, as if confessing a deep, painful secret that Jungkook's expression softened. You don't have to completely let go, but you have to stop letting him control you. You're allowed to have boundaries, to say no. There was silence between them for a moment, and Jimin found himself caught in the storm of his own thoughts. He had always wanted his father's approval. He had sacrificed so much for it, but now, the cost of that approval felt too high. Jungkook was right. He couldn't keep living like this, but the question remained. Could he really confront his father? Could he really walk away from the years of emotional manipulation and pain? Could he risk everything? His family, his career, his reputation, for his own happiness? Jungkook, Jimin said slowly. What if I lose everything by doing this? What if my father never speaks to me again? What if? What if he turns everyone against me? Jungkook shook his head. That's not your responsibility. You can't control how he reacts, but you can control how you choose to live your life. You've been through so much already. This is your moment to decide who you want to be, not who he wants you to be. The weight of his words hung in the air as Jimin absorbed them. He had been running on autopilot for so long, following the path that had been set for him, that he didn't know where he ended and his father began. And now, in this moment, everything felt like it was crumbling. His father's expectations, the fame, the unspoken promises he had made to keep the peace. It was all slipping through his fingers like sand. But Jungkook was right. He couldn't keep living in fear of his father's wrath. It was time to face the truth, no matter how terrifying it seemed. Jimin took a deep breath, wiping his tears. "Okay, I'll do it," he said quietly, his voice gaining strength with each word. "I'll stand up to him, but I need you, all of you, by my side." Jungkook smiled, a gentle expression that seemed to fill the room with warmth. "You have us, Jimin. Always." Meanwhile, in another room, the rest of the BTS members gathered together, the atmosphere tense but filled with an unspoken solidarity. They had all seen the pain in Jimin's eyes, and they had all known that this moment was coming. It wasn't just Jimin who was being affected by the storm, it was all of them. "I've never seen Jimin like this," Taeyong said, his voice quiet with concern. "It's like he's trapped between two worlds, and I don't know how to help him." "I know," Namjoon replied, his brow furrowed. "But he's not alone. We're his family, and we'll stand by him no matter what. He just needs to believe in himself." The conversation continued, but there was an undeniable feeling that something big was about to happen. Jimin was on the verge of something monumental, a decision that could change everything. And BTS, as always, would be there, supporting him every step of the way. Jimin's hands trembled as he stood at the door of his father's house. His breath was shallow, each beat of his heart a reminder of what he was about to do. He had spent his entire life trying to please this man, living under his expectations, never daring to stand up for himself. But now, after everything he had endured, the anger, the pain, the weight of the years, Jimin had finally reached a breaking point. He knocked. The door opened to reveal his father's stern face, the same cold authority that had always loomed over him. "What are you doing here?" His voice was distant, as if he already knew what was coming but refused to acknowledge it. "I need to talk," Jimin said, his voice steady, but there was an edge to it that even surprised him. "I can't keep living like this anymore." His father's eyes narrowed, the disappointment clear in his gaze. "Living like what? You're a successful artist. Everything you've ever wanted is in front of you. What else do you need?" Jimin's gaze hardened as he took a step forward. "I want to live for myself. I can't keep trying to meet your expectations. I can't keep living in your shadow." For a moment, his father's face flickered between confusion and fury. The silence between them grew heavy, but Jimin stood his ground. His father opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, his hand shot up, as though ready to strike. Jimin didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. "I'm done," he said, his voice unwavering. "I'm done living for you. I'm done being what you want me to be." The slap that Jimin had been bracing for never came. His father froze, looking at him as though seeing him for the first time. But Jimin didn't wait around to find out what would happen next. He turned and walked out, leaving his father speechless and alone. Jimin had broken free. Back at the dorm, the BTS members had been waiting for Jimin's return. They had seen the video, the one that captured the raw tension of the moment, Jimin's words that had shaken the foundation of his relationship with his father. The group, who had supported him through countless challenges, stood together now, waiting for him to come back, not as the artist they knew, but as the person they cared about. When Jimin entered, his eyes were red, his face pale, but there was something different about him now, a quiet strength that had never been there before. He didn't need to say a word. They could all see it in his eyes. Jungkook, always the first to offer comfort, stepped forward. "You did it, Hyung," he said softly. "You took control of your life." Jimin nodded, the weight of the moment catching up with him. "I'm scared," he whispered. "I don't know what comes next, but for the first time, I feel like I've made a choice for myself." The others gathered around him, each one offering their silent support, standing united as they had so many times before. But this was different. This wasn't about their careers or their fame. It was about Jimin and the courage he had found to stand up for himself. The media soon picked up the story. Fans, though shocked, rallied behind Jimin, showing their support. But behind the social media posts, the tweets, the hashtags, Jimin felt a deep unease. The silence from his father was deafening. The man who had controlled so much of his life for so long was now completely absent. No calls, no messages, not even a sign of recognition. As the days went on, Jimin tried to push the fear from his mind, but it clung to him. He was constantly left wondering, was it worth it? Would his father ever speak to him again? One evening, as he sat outside on the balcony, Jungkook joined him. The two of them sat in comfortable silence, the night stretching out before them. After a while, Jimin broke the quiet. "Do you think he'll ever talk to me again?" Jimin asked, his voice soft but heavy with uncertainty. "I did what I had to do, but I feel like I've lost everything." Jungkook turned to him, his eyes filled with understanding. "It might take time, but you did what was right for you, Hyung. You stood up for yourself. That's not easy. And even if he doesn't come around immediately, we're here for you. We've always been." Jimin couldn't help but smile faintly at his words. Despite the storm raging inside him, the members were his anchor. They understood him in a way his father never had. And yet, there was a gnawing emptiness. No matter how much love he received from his friends, the silence from his father still echoed in his heart. Later that night, as he sat alone in his room, Jimin's phone buzzed. A message. "We need to talk." His father's words. Finally, Jimin's pulse quickened as he stared at the screen. The storm was far from over, but now, at least, it felt like he was finally going to have the conversation he had been avoiding for so long. Jimin sat at the edge of his bed, staring at his phone, the message from his father burning into his mind. "We need to talk." His heart raced with a mixture of dread and anticipation. After days of silence, it was finally happening. Would it be the confrontation he feared, or the beginning of something new? The doorbell rang, cutting through the stillness of the dorm. Jimin jumped up, his nerves on edge. Jungkook, who had been waiting with him, gave him a reassuring nod before stepping aside. "Whatever happens, you're not alone." Jimin took a deep breath and walked to the door, his steps heavy. When he opened it, his father stood there, looking older, more fragile than he remembered. The stern face that had once intimidated him now seemed like a mask, a man struggling to maintain control over a life he couldn't shape anymore. "Come in," Jimin said quietly, stepping aside. The tension in the room was palpable as Jimin's father sat down across from him. For the first time, Jimin saw something different in his father's eyes. Regret, maybe, or fear. But it was there, hidden beneath layers of anger. "I'm sorry, Jimin," his father began, his voice cracking. I've been so focused on what I thought was best for you that I never saw the damage I was causing." Jimin's breath hitched. The apology he'd waited years for was finally here, but it didn't feel as freeing as he had imagined. "It's too late for apologies," Jimin said, his voice steady but broken. "I don't know who you are anymore. You were never there when I needed you. I was trying to protect you," his father replied, voice laced with frustration. "I thought that if I pushed you hard enough, you'd be stronger. You'd be successful. I didn't need your protection," Jimin snapped. "I needed your love, your understanding." Silence hung between them like a thick fog. Jimin's father looked down at his hands, finally seeming to grasp the weight of his son's words. "I failed you," he said softly. For a long time, Jimin didn't speak. He didn't know what to say. He had spent his whole life trying to earn his father's approval, and now he was finally confronting the truth. It wasn't about success or fame. It was about love. A love he never felt, no matter how hard he tried to meet his father's expectations. "I can't keep carrying your dreams, Dad," Jimin finally said, his voice firm but gentle. "I have my own now." His father looked at him, defeated. "I understand, son. I truly do." The next morning, Jimin woke to a flood of messages, mostly from his members, but some from his father, too. There were no apologies, no words of reconciliation. Instead, there was a simple message from his father. "I hope you find happiness." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the resolution Jimin had imagined, but it was a start. He wasn't sure where his relationship with his father would go from here, but he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer the boy who needed his approval to feel worthy. Jungkook was the first to call, his voice warm and full of relief. "How do you feel, Hyung?" Jimin paused, looking out the window at the busy streets below. "I feel free," he whispered. Finally, days passed. The chaos from the backstage incident and Jimin's confrontation with his father slowly began to fade from the headlines. But the echoes inside Jimin's heart remained. Healing wasn't a switch he could flip. It was a slow, aching journey a night. When the dorm grew quiet, Jimin would sometimes sit with Jungkook, staring at the stars from the balcony. They didn't always talk. Sometimes it was enough just to exist side by side, breathing the same cool air, knowing they weren't alone in their struggles. One night, Jimin finally broke the silence. "I spent so long chasing something that wasn't mine. I forgot what I actually wanted." Jungkook looked at him, smiling softly. "And what do you want now?" Jimin thought for a long time before answering. "Peace. Real peace. And to make music that feels true, not music to please someone else." That promise, to himself, to his friends, became the foundation for the next chapter of his life. When BTS returned to the stage for their next concert, there was something different in the air. Jimin's energy was raw, pure, not masked by fear or expectation. His voice carried the pain, the hope, the resilience he had fought so hard for. Fans could feel it. They cheered louder, sang harder, cried openly. It was a rebirth. Behind the scenes, Jimin received a simple message from his father again. Just before going on stage, "I'm proud of you." No demands, no guilt, just pride. It wasn't a full repair, but it was enough for now. After the final song, BTS gathered together, arms slung around each other's shoulders. They didn't say anything grand. They didn't need to. Their bond had already said it all. They had faced anger, fear, betrayal, and survived it together. Stronger, closer. As the lights dimmed and the crowd roared one last time, Jimin closed his eyes and smiled, feeling, finally, truly free. Pain had shaped him, but it no longer defined him. Through sacrifice, through love, through the unbreakable bond of friendship, Jimin and BTS chose healing, chose themselves, and that choice changed everything.